Jaipur's palace hotels are still charging $40 a night, but heritage entry fees just tripled on January the 1st. Flight searches are up 107%, and the window to do this city at these prices is closing faster than anyone is admitting.
Welcome to Phil and H Travel. Is it worth it? Today we are in Jaipur, the pink city of Rajasthan, India, where you can sleep in a maharaja's palace for less than a London hostel, eat a full thali meal for under £1, and explore one of the most visually extraordinary cities on the planet. But the crowds are arriving, the government just hiked its fees, and the question we are here to answer is whether 2026 is the last year to do Jaipur before it crosses from exceptional value into ordinary expensive.
Those quotes right there, that is the exact hook and the exact introduction from a newly released, highly granular travel dossier. And that document is, well, it's the entire foundation of our deep dive today.
It really is. We have this incredibly detailed, mathematically grounded report on Jaipur, India, and it's looking exclusively at the realities on the ground right now in 2026.
Right, so this isn't some glossy, filtered tourism brochure.
Oh, definitely not. It is a logistics-first, hyper-detailed breakdown. It looks at what things actually cost, the physical realities of the infrastructure, and, this is key, the specific traps designed to just, well, separate you from your money.
Yeah, it's a purely data-driven piece of analysis. So our goal for this deep dive is to take you through the 11 core sections of this text.
Exactly. We're going to cut through all that heavily filtered social media aesthetic of the pink city. We want to figure out the actual mechanics of navigating it.
Because we want to help you understand the true economic landscape of Jaipur today and ultimately, help you determine if this is the right destination for your specific travel style.
Because as the data makes abundantly clear right from the very first sentence, the ground is shifting beneath our feet.
It really is. And to understand Jaipur right now, you have to start with the math. There is this specific set of numbers currently catching almost every newly arrived tourist completely off guard.
It's breaking their spreadsheets the moment they land.
Literally. The absolute headline figure from the dossier is 107%. That is the year-on-year increase in flight searches to Jaipur in early 2026.
Global demand is just surging.
Surging. But the number that actually matters to your daily out-of-pocket expenses is what happened on January 1st, 2026.
Yes, the heritage site entry fee hike.
Right.
The Rajasthan government instituted this massive overnight increase for foreign visitors across, well, pretty much all major attractions.
Right. Let's look at the exact figures provided in the source because they are wild. There's this composite ticket, which is what the vast majority of visitors buy.
Right. It covers 5 major sites.
Exactly. The Amber Fort, the City Palace, Jantar Mantar, Hawa Mahal, and Nahargarh Fort. On December 31st, 2025, that ticket cost 1,000 rupees.
Which is roughly $12 US.
$12. But then on January 1st, 2026, it jumped to 2,500 rupees. That is $30 US.
Right. It's a huge jump.
Wait, hang on, though. I want to push back on this framing for a second. Because $30 for 5 world-class UNESCO-level monuments is, it's still incredibly cheap compared to the global baseline.
Oh, absolutely.
Like if you go to the Tower of London or the Colosseum, you're paying $30 for just one building. So why is the dossier treating this specific hike like some sort of financial disaster?
Well, that's a really vital distinction to make. The dossier isn't arguing that $30 is fundamentally bad value. It's arguing about the shock of relative sticker shock.
Ah,
Yeah, because every travel blog, every polished YouTube vlog, every printed guidebook sitting on shelves that was published before January 2026 is now officially obsolete.
Right. The information is just wrong now.
Completely wrong. People are stepping off planes with these meticulously planned daily allowances. They're expecting to spend $12 for a full day of monument hopping, and bam, they are immediately hit with a near 300% increase.
So the trap isn't the absolute value?
Exactly. The trap is arriving with the wrong number in your head and just completely blowing your daily budget by 10:00 a.m. on day one.
Okay, let's unpack this. That makes total sense. It's a psychological ambush. But the dossier points out that this fee hike creates a bizarre central tension in the city's economy.
It really does. Because while the government has realized they can charge global rates for their monuments, the local real estate and hospitality markets, they just haven't fully caught up yet.
Not at all. We are talking about genuine palace hotels, like extraordinary centuries-old converted havelis and former royal residences. And they are still pricing at $35 to $60 US a night for their mid-range properties.
It is an extreme pricing anomaly. The gap between the price you pay and the quality of the historical immersion you receive, it's wider in Jaipur right now than almost anywhere else in Asia.
The best analogy I can think of to describe this economic disconnect is this. Imagine you find a genuinely authentic Michelin star quality restaurant, and for some bizarre historical reason, the tasting menu is priced exactly the same as a fast food combo meal. The value is insane, and everyone is starting to hear about it. But the catch is, the local city council just realized how popular the street is, and they raised the price of the parking meter right outside the restaurant by 300%.
That's a perfect way to put it.
The meal itself is still an absolute steal, but the baseline cost of simply showing up and existing in that neighborhood has fundamentally changed. And reading this, you have to wonder, how long can a pricing anomaly like this actually survive?
Well, according to the source, it absolutely cannot survive the decade.
Wow, just gone.
Yeah. The Indian government has announced an enormous 2.4 trillion rupee investment in tourism infrastructure running through 2027.
Trillion. That is a massive number. What does that money actually buy?
It buys newly paved highways connecting the Golden Triangle. It buys expanded airport terminals. And crucially, it buys new direct international flight routes.
Right. The access is changing.
Completely. We are seeing planes arriving directly from major hubs like Dubai, Muscat, and Bangkok. Jaipur is no longer just a domestic secret or a rugged backpacker trail.
The attention is there.
The attention is absolutely there. The infrastructure money is pouring in, and the moment the major global hospitality pricing algorithms fully adjust to this new influx of premium infrastructure, that $35 a night palace room will vanish.
So the clock is ticking loudly on the economics. But as the dossier shifts its focus, it makes a crucial pivot.
Right into Module 2.
Exactly. Because while the prices are shifting and the infrastructure is rapidly modernizing, there is one element of Jaipur that remains absolutely immune to economic trends, government decrees, or algorithms.
Yeah.
And it acts as the ultimate unforgiving dictator of your entire experience. We are talking about the climate and the invisible tax of the seasonal clock.
Precisely. Jaipur is situated in a semi-arid landscape. It is not a year-round destination in the way a temperate city like London or New York might be.
You can't just show up whenever.
No, the environment here demands absolute respect, and the specific month you choose to visit drastically alters both the physical toll of the trip and the financial cost.
The dossier breaks the calendar down into 4 distinct phases, doesn't it?
It does. And it is imperative that travelers understand these before booking flights. It starts with the golden window, October to February.
This is peak season. The temperatures sit beautifully between 15 and 25 degrees Celsius.
Very comfortable.
And the skies are generally clear. The source makes this very specific, almost poetic point about the light, how the low winter dawn light hitting the pink and ochre sandstone of the city is visually extraordinary during these months.
November and December are highlighted as the absolute sweet spot.
Yeah, the temperatures are cool enough that the massive fort complexes are actually manageable to walk around. And you still get some post-monsoon greenery clinging to the Aravalli hills above the city.
But naturally, because the weather is perfect, the market knows it. Palace hotels charge a 20 to 40% premium over their summer rates.
You pay for perfection. But then we hit January, and the dossier raises a massive logistical red flag that catches a lot of casual planners out.
Oh, the literature festival.
Yes, January brings the Jaipur Lit Fest. To put the scale of this into perspective, this is the largest free literary festival on Earth. In 2026, the source notes it drew over 400,000 visitors across 5 days.
400,000. Think about the physical logistics of that. That is an entire mid-sized American city descending on an ancient walled heritage city, all at exactly the same time.
The infrastructure strain must be unbelievable.
It is absolute gridlock. The dossier is incredibly blunt about this specific week. Hotel availability absolutely collapses 6 to 8 weeks before the event.
So you can't just wing it.
No. If you arrive in Jaipur in January without your accommodation pre-booked and locked in with a deposit, you are going to be scrambling. You will be paying astronomical, deeply inflated rates for incredibly substandard rooms on the outskirts of the city.
Wow. And then the calendar moves into March. The dossier describes this as a shoulder season that transitions sharply, and I mean within a matter of days, into intense dry heat.
Right, the heat starts building fast.
But March also holds one of the biggest cultural magnets in India, Holi, the Festival of Colors.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
In 2026, Holi fell on March 14th.
The dossier describes the festival in Jaipur as chaotic, highly photogenic, and genuinely worth attending. But again, look at the math underlying the culture.
The numbers spike.
Massively.
Yeah.
International search interest for Jaipur spiked by 459%, specifically around Holi. And hotel premiums jump 50 to 100% for that single weekend. You're paying a massive premium for a 3-day cultural peak.
Then the climate takes over completely. April to June is the extreme heat phase.
How hot are we talking?
Temperatures routinely hit 40 to 45 degrees Celsius.
Wow, that's over 110 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yes, often with a punishing dry wind. The dossier paints a very stark picture here. You have to understand the thermal mass of the architecture. The forts and palaces are built of solid stone. By May, that stone absorbs the sun all day and radiates heat like an open oven long after sunset. Monuments that are a magnificent joy to explore in November become literal, dangerous endurance tests in May.
Just baking in the sun.
Exactly. The only upside during this period is entirely financial. Accommodation prices drop by 30 to 40%.
I mean, imagine you've flown 14 hours, you've navigated the airport, you step out of your air-conditioned car at the Amber Fort at noon in May, and it feels like you've just opened an industrial oven door directly into your face.
That is the physical reality the dossier is warning you about.
Finally, July to September brings the monsoon. The extreme heat breaks slightly, dropping to between 28 and 35 degrees, replaced by intense humidity.
But the landscape changes completely.
Right. The surrounding arid landscape turns surprisingly vibrantly green, and you still see heavy discounts of 40 to 50% on hotels.
The dossier calls this an underrated window. It's specifically highlighted for photographers who are comfortable with a bit of unpredictability, dramatic storm clouds and sudden downpours.
But it isn't just the weather you are battling. It is the sheer volume of human beings occupying the same space.
The crowds.
Yes, the dossier explicitly outlines the crowd flashpoints, and they are severe. The Amber Fort, which is the crown jewel attraction of the region, reaches absolute unmoving gridlock between 10:00 and 2:00 p.m. during the peak season.
Gridlock. Like you literally can't move.
They report queue waits of 45 to 60 minutes just to get through the outer ticket gates. You are standing in a sun-baked stone courtyard, shoulder to shoulder, surrounded by thousands of people.
So what's the advice?
The advice is uncompromising. Arrive before 8:00 a.m. or after 3:00 p.m.
That makes sense.
Similarly, the Hawa Mahal, the famous Palace of Winds, you need to photograph it from the road opposite at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
By 9:30 a.m., the narrow lanes around it become physically impassable due to massive tour groups, auto rickshaws, and commuter traffic.
What's fascinating here is how the dossier frames this entire dynamic. Timing in Jaipur operates as an invisible tax.
An invisible tax, I like that.
You are always going to pay it. The only choice you have as a traveler is the currency you use. You either pay with your hard cash in December to enjoy the comfortable weather and manageable crowds, or you pay in sweat, physical exhaustion, and dehydration in May to get the budget rates.
There is no escaping the toll.
No. You just have to decide which resource, your money, or your physical stamina, you are more willing to part with.
That's a brutal choice. But regardless of whether you land in the cool, crisp breeze of December or the blistering, oppressive heat of May, those first few hours on the ground are critical.
Module 3. The arrival.
Exactly, because how you handle your arrival sets the tone for your entire psychological relationship with the city. Let's talk about those first impressions and the immediate arrival logistics, because the moment you step off the plane, your critical thinking skills are immediately put to the test.
The arrival experience has actually modernized quite a bit recently. Flights land at Jaipur International Airport, which is located 13 kilometers south of the walled Old City.
Not too far.
No. And the dossier highlights the newly expanded Terminal 2, completed in 2024. This terminal now handles direct international connections, places like Dubai via Fly Dubai or Air Arabia, as well as domestic jumps, like the 45-minute flight from Delhi or the 90-minute hop from Mumbai.
And it's relatively small, right?
Yes, and importantly, it is described as small enough to navigate without stress, which, if you have ever flown into Delhi's massive, sprawling Indira Gandhi International, is a profound relief.
Oh, definitely. It's manageable. But just because the terminal is manageable doesn't mean you can turn your brain off, because the moment you step toward the exit doors, the financial testing begins.
The gauntlet.
The gauntlet. The dossier gives exact, granular pricing for getting from the airport to the old city, and this is where so many people make their first mistake. Inside the terminal, there is a prepaid taxi booth.
Right. Highly regulated.
You walk up, you state your hotel, you agree on a price there. It should be between 400 and 500 rupees, which is roughly $5 to $6. You take your printed receipt, hand it to the driver outside, and you are entirely insulated from negotiation.
Or you can use the apps.
Yes, alternatively, you can use the airport Wi-Fi to book an Uber or an Ola, which is the dominant Indian ride-sharing equivalent. Those apps will quote you between 300 and 380 rupees, so around $3.50 to $4.50.
But, and this is a huge but, the dossier issues a very strict, highly specific warning regarding what happens if you bypass those official options and just walk out the doors.
What happens?
Do not accept any offer from the touts standing outside the exit. These are independent drivers who do not have pre-agreed fares. They routinely quote 1,000 to 1,500 rupees to newly landed, disoriented travelers.
That's like triple the price.
Exactly. They are actively preying on the psychology of arrival. You've just stepped off a long flight, you are likely exhausted, dealing with a time zone shift, and your brain has not yet recalibrated to the local currency exchange rates. They're quoting 3 to 4 times the actual mathematical rate.
It's the classic arrival trap. You have to be fully operational the second you land. But once you secure that correct fare and get into the car, the dossier describes the drive into the city. It takes about 20 to 35 minutes, depending on traffic.
And that drive is an experience in itself.
It is where the sensory reality of Jaipur violently introduces itself. The text says the city reveals itself gradually through the modern suburbs until you see the first section of the massive, crenellated old city wall, and then those famous pink-washed facades begin to dominate the visual field.
And the dossier clarifies a fascinating historical detail about that color.
The pink.
Yes, the terracotta pink isn't some modern marketing invention. It is genuine, historically rooted, and it is uniformly applied by municipal law across the old city.
By law.
Yeah, it stems from a very specific diplomatic event in 1876. Maharaja Sawai Ram Singh painted the entire city pink in preparation for a visit by Prince Albert of Wales.
Oh, wow. Why pink?
Well, pink was traditionally the color of hospitality in Rajput culture. But this wasn't just aesthetic. It was a highly calculated political maneuver. By painting the city, the Maharaja was making a massive, unmissable visual statement of loyalty and welcome to the British Crown during a time of complex political tension in the subcontinent.
That is brilliant. It was like rolling out a civic-scale red carpet.
Exactly. And the city simply kept the tradition and the municipal ordinances going for the next 150 years.
I love that observation from the source where it notes that the city looks exactly like the photographs, which somehow makes it more surprising rather than less.
You usually expect a filter.
Right. In the modern era, you expect some social media color enhancement. But no, the walls are actually that saturated, dusty terracotta pink. But the visual impact is only one fraction of the experience.
The sensory overload.
The dossier breaks down the exact sensory overload of those first moments stepping out of the taxi. It's like standing inside a kaleidoscope while someone revs a diesel engine next to your head.
That sounds intense.
It is. You are inhaling fine desert dust, the sweet, heavy fragrance of fresh marigold garlands hanging from market stalls, the sharp scent of sandalwood incense drifting from tiny sidewalk shrines. But that is mixed immediately with the harsh, throat-catching smell of diesel exhaust from hundreds of two-stroke auto rickshaws.
A total clash of senses.
And cutting through all of it is the thick, drifting smoke from street food stalls frying piyaz kachori, which is this deeply savory, heavily spiced, onion-stuffed pastry that serves as the city's signature morning fuel.
It is a profound, immediate, full-body immersion. The source describes this first plunge into the streets as both chaotic and incredibly stimulating. It is an environment that forces you to react.
It's sink or swim.
Kind of. But the key takeaway from the dossier is that this feeling of overwhelm is temporary. By the end of day one, most travelers figure out how to filter the noise, how to navigate the traffic patterns, and find what the authors call their operational pace.
Operational pace.
Yes. The city eventually rewards those who can slow down, observe the rhythm, and stop fighting the chaos.
In finding that operational pace, that sense of calm amidst the storm, is infinitely easier when you have a solid, comfortable base camp to retreat to. Which brings us to Module 4, arguably the most exciting part of this entire dataset.
The accommodation costs and the geographical zones of the city.
Because this is where the math goes from being a cautionary tale to being an absolute revelation.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the source states this explicitly. The hotel market defines Jaipur's entire value proposition.
Absolutely.
We touched on this earlier, but to dive deep into the mechanics of it, we first need to understand the physical geography of the city so you know exactly what environment you're buying into. The dossier breaks the city down into 4 distinct zones.
Right, geography dictates experience. Zone 1 is the old city. This is entirely inside the pink walls. You have immediate walking access to major sites like Hawa Mahal, the City Palace, and Jantar Mantar.
But it's intense.
It is dense, it is incredibly noisy, the streets are narrow, but it is the absolute most atmospheric base if it is your first time and you want that relentless, full-throttle immersion.
Then there's Zone 2.
Right, Zone 2 is Bonnie Park.
Yeah.
This is a much quieter, leafy, residential neighborhood sitting just north of the old city walls. It is about a 10 to 15-minute tuk-tuk ride from the main monuments.
So you trade the walking access for some peace.
Exactly. You get significantly less traffic noise, wider streets, and a remarkably strong concentration of lovely family-run heritage guest houses.
What about Zone 3?
Zone 3 is Civil Lines, which runs along the modern commercial spine of the city. It is characterized by government buildings and modern corporate hotels. It is better for business travelers, but the dossier notes it is functionally removed from the historical atmosphere you came to Jaipur to see.
And the final zone?
Zone 4 is Amer Road, heading up north out of the city towards the Amber Fort. This is where you find the sprawling, massive resort-style properties, simply because they have the physical land available for massive gardens and long driveways away from the urban density.
Now, overlaying those geographic zones with the pricing tiers is where the global value anomaly truly reveals itself. The dossier segments the lodging into 4 tiers, providing specific properties and verified 2026 prices.
Let's start with the backpacker tier.
You are looking at roughly $6.50 to $17 a night. The benchmark property here is the Mustache Hostel. You can get a highly functional dorm bed for just under $7, or a private room for $17.
That's incredibly affordable.
It is. But the source highlights a critical point about modern hostels in India. Properties like Mustache or Hostel offer rooftop common areas, reliable Wi-Fi, and curated local knowledge that often radically surpasses the advice you get from concierges at corporate hotels, charging 5 times the price.
So it's not just a cheap bed.
No, the social infrastructure and the safety networks built into these spaces are incredibly strong.
Then you step up to the mid-range couple tier, and the numbers here are frankly astonishing. $42 to $60 a night.
Let's put that in perspective.
Right. For that price in most Western cities, you are getting a generic plasterboard chain hotel by an interstate. In Jaipur, you are getting genuine heritage properties.
Like what?
The dossier highlights a specific personal Pick Pearl Palace heritage in Bani Park. It starts at $42. It is a repeatedly award-winning guest house with a phenomenal rooftop restaurant and incredibly attentive staff. Or Dera Rawatsar, located inside the old city walls, starting from $45.
And we need to explain what a haveli actually is.
Please do, because it's not just a hotel.
No, a haveli is a traditional aristocratic mansion. They are architectural marvels built entirely inward-facing. They're designed around central, shaded stone courtyards, specifically engineered to trap cool air during the summer.
Very smart design.
Extremely. They feature intricately carved stone screens, private balconies, and massive spiked wooden doors that were originally designed quite literally to keep out enemy war elephants.
Wait, war elephants?
Yes. The building itself is the primary experience. You are paying $45 to sleep inside living, breathing history.
That is just mind-blowing value. But what about the next tier?
Moving up to the family tier, which ranges from $84 to $120 a night, another personal pick is highlighted here, Alcazar Haveli, starting at $90.
What makes a family tier different from the mid-range?
This gives you a sprawling heritage property right in the center of the action, but crucially for this demographic, it provides the physical space and the specific amenities a family requires. Namely, a large, clean swimming pool for midday heat retreats and larger interconnected family suites.
A pool is mandatory in that heat.
Absolutely. Alternatively, for families requiring absolute predictability, heavy air conditioning, and international corporate resort standards, there is the ITC Rajputana from $115.
Okay, but the luxury tier is where I genuinely had to read the numbers twice. We are talking about $180 to $960 a night.
Now, I know $900 is a massive amount of money anywhere in the world.
It's a fortune.
But you have to look at what that actually buys you at the very top end of the market. The dossier profiles the Rambagh Palace. This is not just a high-end resort built 10 years ago. It is the actual, historical, former private residence of the Maharaja of Jaipur.
The actual Maharaja.
Yes. It is now managed by the ultra-luxury Taj Group. It sits on 57 hectares of manicured private grounds in the middle of a dense city. It has its own actual functioning polo field.
A polo field.
Polo field. Standard rooms start at $420. The highest-end historical suites go up to $960.
Wait, a Maharaja's actual palace for $420? That's what a standard Marriott costs in Miami during spring break. How does the economics of that work?
It's the lag in global pricing algorithms we discussed earlier, combined with the lower baseline cost of labor and operations in India. The source is absolutely explicit about this comparison.
What's the comparison?
$420 for a standard room at a genuine, historically significant royal palace with white glove service is exactly half the price of equivalent, often sterile luxury in a city like Bangkok, Dubai, or London.
Half the price?
Yes. And the dossier states with absolute certainty that this specific pricing tier will not survive the decade. Sleeping in a 17th century haveli or a maharaja's private quarters for these prices offers a level of profound historical immersion that a standard modern resort simply cannot replicate. It is a fleeting generational economic window.
It really is. You save an absolute fortune on living like literal royalty, but eventually, you have to leave your palace courtyard and eat.
Yeah.
And this brings us to Module 5, the food scene.
The food.
Because just like the hotels, the culinary landscape in Jaipur has a massive, stark dividing line right down the middle of it.
The dossier describes Jaipur's food economy as being sharply split between the local domestic system and the international tourist system.
Right.
And the price difference between these two economies is noted as being among the most dramatic in all of India. Understanding exactly where this invisible line sits and how to cross it is the key to both saving your budget and, frankly, getting a vastly superior culinary experience.
Let's start with the local food economy, which is built entirely around rich, complex Rajasthani cuisine. The source singles out the absolute signature dish of the region dal bati churma.
Oh, we need to describe this because it's not just food, it's edible history.
It really is. It is a brilliant, heavy, calorie-dense desert survival food. It consists of highly spiced, rich lentils, that's the dal, dense baked whole wheat dumplings, the body that you crush up with your hands, and a sweetened, crushed wheat mixture, the churma.
And then comes the ghee.
Oh, yes. All of which is drowned in liberal, unapologetic amounts of hot ghee or clarified butter. Why was it invented? Because in the arid desert, water was scarce, but milk and butter were plentiful, and the baked wheat dumplings could last for days without spoiling during long camel journeys.
It's fascinating how geography creates cuisine.
And today, a full, incredibly filling serving of this at a local dhaba, a traditional roadside diner, will cost you between 100 and 150 rupees. That is $1.20 to $1.80 US.
Incredible.
The dossier rightfully categorizes this as one of the greatest, most satisfying cheap meals in Asia.
For navigating this local economy safely, specifically regarding hygiene, the dossier points travelers directly to Masala Chowk.
What is Masala Chowk?
It's a brilliant civic initiative. It is a purpose-built, open-air street food hub situated near the Albert Hall Museum. It features 35 permanent stalls representing the most famous local eateries in the city.
Oh, so it's curated.
Exactly. Because it is government-regulated, the hygiene standards and water sources are strictly monitored, removing the primary anxiety tourists have about street food.
That's a huge relief.
It offers an encyclopedic range of both local Rajasthani classics and national dishes. You can get the Pyaz Kachori we mentioned earlier for 20 to 30 rupees, literally pennies.
Wow.
You can get mirchi vada, which is a massive spicy green chili stuffed with potato and deep fried in graham flour for 15 rupees. Freshly pressed sugarcane juice with ginger and lime for 30 rupees.
So cheap.
The directive from the source is clear. This is where your food budget should be spent. Go for breakfast and go back again in the evening.
And there's one highly specific local spot the dossier lists as absolutely non-negotiable Lassiwala on MI Road.
Oh, the Lassiwala.
It is a tiny, unassuming stall. There is always a queue of locals spilling onto the pavement, and they sell exactly one thing. Thick, sweetened buffalo milk lassi served in a disposable, unglazed terracotta clay pot called a kulhad.
I love that detail about the clay pot.
Right. The clay actually absorbs some of the moisture, making the yogurt even thicker and imparting an earthy flavor. It costs 50 rupees, which is roughly 60 cents.
And it's better than the expensive stuff.
The source claims without hesitation that this lassi is richer, colder, and superior to anything you will be served in a formal, air-conditioned restaurant, charging 5 times the price. But there is a logistical catch.
Which is?
You have to get there before 11 a.m. because they make a specific daily batch, and once they sell out, they literally wash the counter and close up shop for the day.
Now contrast that vibrant, incredibly affordable local economy with the tourist food system. This system is highly geographically concentrated.
Where is it?
It primarily exists elevated above the streets on the rooftops clustered around the major attractions, specifically the Hawa Mahal and the City Palace. Up on these rooftops, the economics change instantly.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Main courses suddenly jump to between 400 and 800 rupees, so $5 to $10. The dossier mentions the Peacock Rooftop restaurant near Hawa Mahal as a prime example. You are paying 600 rupees, about $7, for a standard main dish.
This is where the dossier's analysis is so sharp. It includes a specific observation that brilliantly illustrates this bizarre divide. It points out that the restaurants sitting directly adjacent to the Hawa Mahal on the main intersection are charging 4 to 5 times the price of the exact same food being cooked and sold just 2 streets behind them.
It's just a few streets away.
Literally. If you walk through the archway of the Hawa Mahal and step into the narrow residential lane directly behind it, your food bill instantly drops by 75%.
For the exact same dishes.
Exactly. So why do people pay it? Why pay $10 when you can pay $2? The dossier is blunt about the transaction. When you sit on those rooftops, the food is decent, but you are not paying for superior culinary technique or better ingredients. You are purely renting the real estate.
Right, you're renting the elevation.
You are paying for the elevation away from the noise, and you are paying for the unobstructed eye-level view of the palace facade, which, the source admits, is a completely legitimate transaction and worth paying for at least once. But you should know exactly what you are buying. You are buying a view, not a better curry.
The module also provides crucial practicalities for those on longer stays. It notes that modern fixed-price supermarkets like D-Mart and Reliance Smart exist in the newer parts of the city.
Good to know.
These are vital for bypassing the haggling economy entirely when you just need to buy unglamorous staples like sealed bottled water, basic toiletries, or imported biscuits at normal printed retail prices.
And crucially, it outlines the strict cultural etiquette expected in the city, which is heavily tied to commerce and daily movement.
Yes, the etiquette section is vital because Jaipur is fundamentally a conservative traditional city. Modesty is strictly required at all religious sites. This means shoulders and knees must be completely covered.
And the source emphasizes that this applies equally to all genders. Whether you are at the sprawling city palace, a small Hindu temple inside the Amber Fort, or the Jama Masjid Mosque, the rule is absolute.
You also need to be prepared to remove your shoes frequently.
Right.
Not just at temples, which is standard across India, but often before entering the common areas or inner courtyards of heritage havelis, you will be walking barefoot on a lot of ancient stone.
And then there is the etiquette of commerce in the bazaars. Bargaining in places like Johari Bazaar for silver jewelry or Bapu Bazaar for textiles is not just common, it is absolutely expected. It is the fundamental mechanism of the market.
The dossier notes the psychology of this. The opening price quoted to an international tourist is typically anchored at 3 to 4 times what the vendor actually expects to receive as the final price.
So how do you handle that?
The advice is to negotiate calmly, without aggression or anger. View it as a normal, almost conversational part of the transaction. And remember that simply walking away is a highly effective, legitimate tactic that almost always yields the vendor's actual bottom line offer.
So if you take your accommodation choices and combine them with your eating and transport strategies, you arrive at your exact daily burn rate, which is Module 6. And having these concrete, mathematically tested numbers is incredibly useful for planning.
The source provides highly specific, out-of-pocket daily budgets per person, calculated rigorously for 2026. For the low or backpacker tier, the daily total is $29.50.
What does $30 get you?
That includes a $7 dorm bed, relying entirely on street food for breakfast and dinner, a local dhaba lunch, shared auto rickshaws for transport, and, crucially, it factors in the new inflated $30 heritage ticket, amortized over a standard 3-day stay.
Moving to the mid-range couple budget, you are looking at $77.50 per person per day.
That's a very comfortable jump.
It is. That bumps you up out of the dorm and into a private room in a heritage haveli, throws in one nice rooftop dinner purely for the view, upgrades your transport to air-conditioned Ubers, and even allocates funds for a specific paid cultural activity, like a block printing workshop in Bagru or a private cooking class.
At the high or luxury end, the daily total sits at $445 per person.
Quite the jump.
That covers sleeping at the Rambagh Palace, eating exclusively at high-end curated hotel restaurants, hiring a private air-conditioned driver for the entire day, and engaging in highly exclusive private experiences, like a polo lesson or an after-hours guided fort tour.
The dossier also includes a highly modern category for digital nomads, estimating a monthly cost of $780 to $1,200 all in.
That's very reasonable for a month.
It factors in long-stay negotiated discounts on guest houses, incredibly cheap local 5G data, about $3.60 a month for a Geo SIM card with massive data limits, and a dedicated desk at a modern, air-conditioned co-working space like 91 Springboard for $96 a month.
Just look at that economic spread. $29 a day, all the way up to $445 a day.
But the underlying philosophical point the dossier makes here is fantastic. The budget scales exponentially based solely on the thread count of your sheets and the elevation of your dining table. But the core cultural access remains profoundly democratic.
Yes.
The streets, the 18th century architecture, the sheer saturation of color in the bazaars, that is the actual reason you go to Jaipur. And the traveler spending $29 a day is walking the exact same pink streets, dodging the exact same auto rickshaws, and watching the exact same spectacular, fiery sunset over the Nahargarh fort as the traveler spending $445. The city itself, its essence, does not discriminate by budget.
That is a crucial democratizing insight. However, the dossier pivots sharply here to a warning. And this leads us to Module 7.
Ah, the traps.
Exactly. Those meticulously planned budgets, whether you are aiming for $30 or $400, only hold up if you manage to actively avoid the financial pitfalls built into the tourist ecosystem.
The potholes.
The text is highly focused on logistics, and it dedicates a massive section entirely to what it calls the 3 named logistics traps. These are not accidents. They are specific, highly refined mechanisms designed over decades to separate you from your money.
And trap number 1 is something we touched on at the very beginning, but we need to look at the mechanics of it. The heritage fee ambush.
Right.
The mechanism is simple but devastating to a tight spreadsheet. On January 1st, 2026, the composite ticket jumped from $12 to $30. Because every blog and video pre-2026 quotes the old price, travelers arrive blissfully unaware.
Just walking into a wall.
The lived reality is that a couple shows up to the Amber Fort expecting to hand over $24 for their week of sightseeing, and they are suddenly hit with a $60 bill. It is an unbudgeted $30 to $60 hit right out of the gate.
And the actionable fix provided by the dossier is twofold. First, manually adjust your budget to $30 to $36 from day one. But crucially, the logistical fix-only purchase that composite ticket from the official government-run booths located immediately inside the entrance of the first major site you visit.
Inside the entrance.
Exactly. Do not, under any circumstances, buy it from the very convincing touts hanging around outside the exterior gates who claim they can help you skip the queue for a small premium. They're often selling expired or forged tickets.
Trap number 2, however, is much more insidious. The dossier calls it the gem school scam. And we need to break down the exact step-by-step psychological mechanism of how this works, because it is brilliant and terrifying.
It really is a psychological thriller.
Here is how it happens. You are walking along the street, or maybe you are in a tuk-tuk, and a very friendly, well-dressed local strikes up a conversation. Hello, where are you from? Ah, nice shoes. It feels totally organic, just a local wanting to practice English.
Right, very disarming.
Eventually, after building rapport, they mention that today, purely by coincidence, happens to be a special government export day or a regional festival day. And because you are a new friend, they invite you to visit a family gem factory or a textile showroom where you can get wholesale prices that are normally restricted to export businesses. You go inside, they offer you a classic reciprocation tactic, and the environment immediately shifts to high-pressure sales. They are selling items marked up 5 to 20 times their actual market value.
And the certificates.
Oh, they will even produce elaborate, totally fake printed certificates of authenticity for sapphires that are literally just polished, cut glass. And the kicker to the whole operation, the friendly local or the tuk-tuk driver who brought you there gets a massive 30 to 40% hidden commission on whatever you are pressured into buying.
The lived reality of this scam is severe. The dossier notes this has been the single most reported tourist complaint in Jaipur for over 3 decades.
3 decades.
The financial losses from this specific trap range from a frustrating $50 to several $1,000s for people who believe they are buying wholesale gems to resell back home.
So what's the fix?
The actionable fix is an absolute unbreakable rule. Any unsolicited recommendation from a tuk-tuk driver or a stranger on the street to visit a specific, unnamed shop means they are earning a commission. Period. You must say no politely, do not engage further, and move on. If you want to shop, you go to the established bazaars independently.
I have to challenge this, though. I mean, we're living in the smartphone era. Everyone has access to Google, TripAdvisor, and a million warning blogs right in their pocket. If I'm sitting in a showroom, I can just look up the scam. Why do scams like the Gem Factory still work so consistently well on educated travelers?
Because the scam is fundamentally psychological, not technological.
Yeah.
It bypasses the rational, fact-checking part of your brain by weaponizing hospitality.
Weaponizing hospitality.
Yes. When someone is kind to us, especially when we are in a foreign, loud, and overwhelming environment, our deepest human instinct is to reciprocate that kindness. The initial encounter doesn't feel like a commercial transaction. It feels like you're making a genuine local friend.
Right.
Because it feels spontaneous, it completely disables the traveler's normal, cynical defenses. By the time the high-pressure sales pitch starts and the fake certificates come out, social obligation is already heavily kicked in. You have drank their tea, you have met their family, you feel incredibly rude walking away. You aren't falling for the gem, you are falling for the social pressure.
Weaponized hospitality. That is a chillingly effective phrase. You are exactly right. Nobody wants to be the rude, culturally insensitive tourist who walks out on a friend who just gave them tea.
Exactly.
Okay, trap number 3 is a logistical classic, the tuk-tuk meter trap. The mechanism here is straightforward. Auto rickshaws in Jaipur are legally required by the municipality to use electronic meters, but almost none of them do when dealing with international tourists.
They just refuse.
They operate on a flat-rate quotation system that is consistently 2 to 4 times higher than what the meter would actually read. They cluster aggressively around the exits of major monuments and expensive hotels, specifically targeting people who are tired and have no local price reference in their head.
The lived reality is that a short 10-minute hop from the Hawa Mahal up to the Amber Fort, which should cost about $82.40 by the meter, is routinely quoted at $6 to $7.
Which doesn't sound like much initially.
Now, you might think it's just a few dollars, who cares? But over a 3-day itinerary, hitting multiple sites a day, that constant overcharging quietly accumulates into a $15 to $25 tourist tax per person.
So what do we do?
The dossier's fix is highly practical. Rely exclusively on Uber or Ola for any journey over 200 rupees. The price is fixed mathematically on the app before you even enter the vehicle, removing the negotiation entirely. For very short trips where waiting for an app is too slow, you have to negotiate hard anchor your counteroffer at 30 to 40% below their initial quote.
Overcoming those 3 traps, the fee shock, the gem scam, and the meter hustle, is arguably your primary operational challenge in the city. But handling those logistical hurdles naturally leads into a much broader, more important conversation, which is Module 8.
How you actually feel moving through the physical space of the city.
Right. Safety, solo travel, and comfort.
The overarching assessment from the dossier regarding safety is highly reassuring. Jaipur is consistently ranked among the safer major cities in India for international travelers across most meaningful metrics.
That's great to hear.
The risk profile is overwhelmingly dominated by the petty scams, the aggressive touts, and the overcharging we just discussed, rather than threats to personal physical safety. There is mention of petty theft, specifically pickpocketing in the incredibly crowded lanes of Johari Bazaar or occasional bag snatching from moving motorcycles. But it is described as entirely manageable with standard, baseline urban awareness. Keep your wallet in a front pocket, wear your bag across your chest, and the risk drops to near zero.
The dossier also provides highly specific assessments for different demographics. For solo female travelers, the environment is deemed highly manageable, provided you maintain strict situational awareness.
Right.
During daylight hours, the bazaars and tourist zones are so densely populated with so many eyes on the street that they feel physically very safe. However, the primary challenge highlighted extensively in the text is persistent male attention verbal comments, staring, and unwanted approaches.
And what's the advice there?
The practical psychological advice from the source is to develop a direct, uncompromising refusal response. Do not worry about being polite. Avoid making eye contact if someone is persistently approaching. Do not engage in casual conversation with men lingering near monuments, and stay in well-lit, populated areas after dark.
Good advice.
The dossier specifically praises the modern hostel infrastructure, like Mustache, and guest houses, like Pearl Palace, for providing incredibly strong protective staff support and safe communal environments for solo female travelers to decompress. There is also a hard, non-negotiable logistical rule: do not use random, unmarked auto rickshaws flagged off the street after 9:00 p.m. Switch exclusively to trackable app-based rides like Uber.
For families traveling with children, the assessment is also very positive, but with major caveats.
Like what?
The city is deemed excellent for children aged 7 and above who have the physical resilience to handle the intense heat, the pervasive dust, and the moderate physical activity required to climb fort ramparts. However, the source notes sharply that younger children, toddlers, and infants might easily be overwhelmed by the sheer, unrelenting sensory intensity and noise of the old city streets.
That makes total sense.
The logistical advice for families is structural. You must book a hotel with a pool for mandatory midday heat retreats. You need to keep your daily itinerary extremely loose, and you must maintain strict vigilance regarding street food hygiene.
And there's a specific, fascinating detail in the family section that really caught my eye. The dossier mentions the famous elephant ride.
Oh yes, this is a huge shift.
For decades, the iconic image of Jaipur was tourists riding painted elephants up the steep cobblestone switchbacks to the Amber Fort. The document notes that these have now been officially phased out and replaced entirely by electric and diesel jeep shuttles that cost 100 rupees per person.
This raises an important question, though. It's a massive shift, and it represents a destination actively shifting its ethical baseline in real time.
Because of pressure.
The phase-out of the elephants wasn't just a logistical choice. It was a direct market response to sustained global animal welfare pressure. We are watching a centuries-old icon of the Rajasthani tourism industry adapt to align with modern ethical standards.
Which is great.
The Jeeps are faster, they clear the traffic bottleneck, they're far more comfortable, and crucially, they remove an animal from a brutal working environment that routinely hits 45 degrees Celsius on the baking stove.
It is a massive win for the modernization of the industry, even if it permanently changes the traditional postcard image people expect.
Exactly.
And wrapping up the safety section, the dossier touches on health infrastructure, noting that Fortis Escorts Hospital is the reliable international standard medical facility in the city for emergencies. But the most common health issue is exactly what you would expect when changing continents' stomach problems.
The dreaded traveler's belly.
The rules here are absolute and unforgiving.
Yeah.
Drink only factory-sealed bottled water, even for brushing your teeth. Use hand sanitizer constantly, especially after handling cash or before eating street food. And give your digestive system 2 full days to adjust to the new microbiome and spice levels before diving into the heavy street food.
Once you have the logistics locked down, the financial traps mapped out, and your safety and health protocols in place, the mental load finally lifts.
You can breathe.
You are no longer managing a spreadsheet. You are finally free to stop defending yourself and start actually experiencing the city. And that transition brings us to the most subjective but perhaps most valuable part of the dossier Module 9, the best moments and the honest disappointments.
This might be my absolute favorite section of the entire document because it strips away all the marketing copy and tells you what actually matters. Let's start with the highs. The visceral experiences the source says will genuinely stay with you long after you leave.
What's first?
First on the list, the Amber Fort at 7 a.m. You have to endure the early wake-up call to get there exactly when the heavy wooden gates open, beating the convoy of tour buses.
To get the light.
Yes. You catch the early soft dawn light hitting the ochre and pink stone, reflecting perfectly in the still waters of Mayota Lake below. And specifically, the dossier highlights the Sheesh Mahal, the Hall of Mirrors inside the fort.
That room is incredible.
The architecture here is mind-bending. The walls and ceilings are embedded with thousands of tiny convex mirrors. The quote from the text is powerful. No photograph prepares you for it. It was designed so that a single candle lit at night would reflect infinitely, mimicking a star-filled sky for the royalty. It is named as genuinely one of the great, most visually arresting rooms in Asia.
The second highlight is much smaller in scale, much more intimate, but equally impactful. It is simply having breakfast on the rooftop of the Pearl Palace Heritage Hotel,
Just breakfast.
drinking strong, sweet masala chai, looking out over the low-slung old city skyline as the dust settles and the city slowly wakes up. The dossier categorizes this quiet hour as one of the great, cheap experiences in global travel. It is a moment of total serenity and reflection before the relentless chaos of the streets begins.
And the third peak experience is walking the bazaars, specifically the jewelry quarter of Johari Bazaar and the textile hub of Bapu Bazaar at dusk.
The dusk is magic there.
The tiny jewelry stalls light up with intense halogen bulbs. The textile merchants pull massive, heavy rolls of block-printed fabric out onto the streets. The sugarcane presses are cranking out juice. The key instruction from the dossier here is psychological.
Which is?
Walk without an itinerary, without a map, and crucially, without a hired driver trying to steer you toward a commission shop. It is the city operating at its absolute maximum commercial and sensory intensity, and if you embrace it, it is thrilling.
But the document is titled, Is It Worth It? For a reason. It does not shy away from the negatives. The section on honest disappointments is incredibly refreshing because it gives you permission to skip things.
Is that true?
It starts with the most famous building in the city, the Hawa Mahal, the Palace of Winds. The source is very careful in its critique here. The exterior facade, viewed from the street at dawn, is extraordinary, but paying the entry fee to go inside the building is flagged as deeply, confusingly underwhelming.
Yes. And we have to explain the mechanics of why it's a disappointment because it's fascinating. The building was designed in 1799 by Maharaja Sawai Pratap Singh, but it wasn't built as a palace to live in. It was essentially built as a magnificent 5-story architectural screen. It was constructed for the royal Rajput women. Under the strict social rules of Purdah, they couldn't be seen in public, but they still wanted to watch the street festivals and processions below. So this facade was built with 953 tiny, intricately carved windows called shirokas. It acts exactly like a one-way mirror. They could look out, but the street couldn't look in.
And this is where the architecture is brilliant, but makes for a terrible, modern tourist interior. Those 953 windows aren't just for looking out. They are engineered to cool the building using the Venturi effect.
For what?
The Venturi effect. The air from the hot street is forced through these narrow stone openings, which compresses it and dramatically increases its velocity, cooling the air as it enters the corridors. It was an ingenious 18th century air conditioning system.
But as a modern tourist paying an entry fee, you walk inside expecting grand throne rooms and sprawling decorated courtyards. Instead, you get a series of incredibly cramped, narrow, bare stone corridors stacked right behind the facade. You're basically paying to stand inside the ductwork of a giant ancient AC unit.
That's hilarious and true.
The building's entire architectural purpose is lost when you are removed from the context of looking down at the street. The source notes that most tourists spend 20 minutes inside just feeling faintly confused. It isn't that the entry fee is a massive ripoff. It is just that the building functions brilliantly as a facade, but totally fails as an immersive interior experience.
The second major disappointment listed is the Nahargarh Fort. Now, every single guidebook tells you to go up there for the sunset view over Jaipur.
And the view is bad.
No, the dossier agrees. The panoramic view of the sprawling city is magnificent. However, it bluntly points out that the fort structure itself is partially ruined, and the interior historical restorations are highly inconsistent and poorly labeled. The fort is merely a vehicle, a high-altitude platform to get you to the viewpoint. The structure itself is not the highlight.
Reading this section, I realized how incredibly liberating it is when a trusted guide gives you permission to say no. So what does this all mean? When an expert tells you, hey, you don't actually need to waste an hour going inside the Hawa Mahal, they aren't telling you to miss out on culture. They are helping you optimize your limited physical energy and time. It frees you up to spend another hour sipping tea on a rooftop or actually enjoying the bazaars.
It's the fundamental difference between traveling just to check mandatory boxes on a list and traveling to actually experience the rhythm of a place. However, the dossier acknowledges a vital truth in Module 10. Even with the best advice, the clearest budgets, and the best hotels, Jaipur's baseline level of intensity, the unrelenting heat, the aggressive traffic, The sheer density of the crowds might simply be incompatible with some travelers' personalities. And that is why it dedicates a section entirely to alternatives.
Right. I want to ask you about this. If someone has been listening to our breakdown of the 45-degree heat, the aggressive touts, the gem scams, and the sensory overload, and they're thinking, this sounds utterly exhausting, maybe I should just skip it entirely. What does the source say?
It offers two highly specific alternatives to pivot your itinerary. The first is Udaipur, another major princely city in Rajasthan.
How does it compare?
Udaipur is presented as the direct psychological antidote to Jaipur's urban chaos. It is built around an intricate, serene system of artificial lakes, which fundamentally changes both the visual character and the daily pace of the city.
That sounds lovely.
It is. The massive city palace in Udaipur rises directly out of the waters of Lake Pichola. The rooftop views are described as some of the most romantic and tranquil in India. The lived experience is significantly slower, less aggressive, and quieter.
But, as always, the dossier provides the honest, uncompromising economic comparison. That peace and quiet comes with what they call a lake view premium.
A premium.
Yes. Accommodation in Udaipur consistently runs 10 to 20% higher than in Jaipur for equivalent heritage properties. Your daily food costs will be similar, but your bed will cost noticeably more. The source suggests Udaipur is technically superior for couples seeking romance, slow travelers, photographers, or frankly, anyone who finds the idea of Jaipur's constant logistical battles and haggling overwhelming. You are essentially paying a 20% premium for a smoother, softer, emotional experience.
The second alternative provided is Delhi. Now, Delhi is geographically logical because most international travelers flying into northern India will land there to begin their trip regardless.
Right.
The argument for skipping Jaipur and staying in Delhi is one of scale and modern infrastructure. It offers a completely different era of Islamic Mughal heritage sprawling complexes, like Humayun's tomb and the massive Red Fort spread out across a massive forested metropolis. But crucially, the defining difference is that Delhi has a world-class, heavily air-conditioned metro system.
Yes, the metro changes the entire equation of the city. It makes navigating a chaotic metropolis of 30 million people surprisingly manageable, in a way that Jaipur's total, inescapable reliance on negotiating with auto rickshaws is not.
Math, though.
But again, we look at the math. Delhi is a major Tier 1 global capital, and the prices reflect that reality. The dossier notes that Delhi runs 15 to 30% more expensive than Jaipur across the board, both for food and accommodation.
30% more.
Yeah. A basic mid-range hotel in a safe, leafy Delhi neighborhood will start around $54 to $72, noticeably higher than the stunning havelis in Jaipur. Delhi is recommended for absolute first-time visitors to India who want maximum historical coverage with the safety net of modern transit, or travelers with very limited time who can't afford the travel days down to Rajasthan.
This section really challenges the listener to engage in some brutal self-reflection. Don't just travel to Jaipur because it is famous, or because the algorithms push the pink walls to the top of your social media feed.
Right. Be honest with yourself.
If your personal travel persona requires a slower pace, or if you actively abhor the friction of daily haggling, Udaipur or Delhi might be the objectively better choice for your hard-earned time and money, even if they cost slightly more.
It is entirely about knowing what kind of friction you are willing to tolerate in exchange for beauty. Which brings us, finally, to Module 11, the ultimate conclusion of the document. We have covered the entry fee shock, the haveli prices, the blistering heat, the scams, the incredible food, and the alternatives. It is time to bring it all home and deliver the final, brutal calculus, the is it worth it matrix.
This is where the authors synthesize all the data, the prices, and the logistics into final, definitive verdicts broken down strictly by traveler category.
Play it on us.
For the backpackers, living on that incredibly tight $29 a day, the verdict is a resounding yes, but with strict operational conditions.
What conditions?
You must accurately budget for the new 2026 heritage fees so they don't break your daily allowance on day one. You must absolutely unequivocally avoid any tuk-tuk driver recommendations to dodge the commission traps. And if your heat tolerance is low, you must restrict your visit exclusively to the October to February window.
Well, if they do that.
But if you meet those specific conditions, the dossier states that the sheer visual intensity and the incredibly strong hostel infrastructure make Jaipur one of the greatest, most rewarding budget destinations in Asia.
Then we look at the mid-range couple, spending $75 to $80 a day. And the dossier highlights this as the strongest, most enthusiastic verdict on all 5 categories. It is an unmitigated yes.
The strongest verdict.
At this specific price point, you are sleeping in a historic carved haveli and eating on rooftops overlooking illuminated palaces. The source points out the absurdity of the value. You are getting world-class, deep heritage immersion for less than the cost of a budget hotel and a basic pub dinner in London. The $30 entry fee hike is easily absorbed by a mid-range budget. This specific traveler profile is the absolute core beneficiary of the value anomaly we've been discussing.
For families, the verdict is yes, S, again with vital conditions. It is highly recommended for families with children over 7 who can handle the walking. The forts and the colorful bazaars are spectacular for kids. But you must visit in the cooler months. You must ensure your accommodation has a pool to escape the afternoon heat, and you need to keep your itinerary loose. For families with very young children, toddlers under 5, the dossier explicitly suggests pivoting to Udaipur for a lower intensity, more contained experience with the same heritage quality.
The luxury tier, spending around $445 a day, is a definitive yes. And the reasoning here is fascinating. The dossier argues that paying $420 for a room at the Rambagh Palace isn't just good value compared to a generic luxury resort in Thailand or Bali. It is historically significant access.
Access?
Yes, you are buying access to an architectural and cultural context that simply cannot be replicated by pouring concrete for a modern infinity pool. And they reiterate their warning, this pricing for this specific level of historical luxury will not last the decade.
Finally, for the digital nomad and long-term solo traveler looking at around $1,000 a month, the verdict is yes, with conditions regarding your working environment.
What's the issue?
The technical infrastructure is absolutely there. The 5G is reliable, the modern co-working spaces are solid, but the dossier warns that the walled old city is not a productive working environment. The relentless noise is too exhausting for a daily routine. You have to base yourself in the quieter, residential Bani Park area. And even then, it suggests Jaipur is perhaps better suited for a 2 to 3 week intense cultural immersion rather than a months-long base, suggesting the slower pace of Udaipur might offer better long-term work-life balance.
So across the board, the value anomaly of Jaipur in 2026 is confirmed by the data as incredibly real. You can still access astonishing heritage, incredible food, and literal royalty-level luxury for a fraction of global baseline prices.
But it demands a trade-off.
It requires you to be a highly operational, switched-on traveler. You have to be hyper-aware of the January 2026 fee changes. You have to be constantly vigilant against the commission traps, and you have to respect the physical toll of the climate. If you can manage those logistics, the Pink City overwhelmingly delivers on its promise.
As we conclude this deep dive into the source material, I want to leave you with a broader concept to chew on, something that extends far beyond just planning a vacation to Rajasthan.
Okay.
We talked about the Indian government pouring 2.4 trillion rupees into tourism infrastructure by 2027. We talked about new airport terminals, global flight routes, and the inevitable algorithmic rise of hotel prices.
Right.
The profound irony underlying this entire dossier is that the very things making Jaipur an accessible democratic value anomaly today are the exact things being actively paved over to prepare for tomorrow's premium, frictionless global market.
It is a transition we are seeing worldwide. We are watching a destination gentrify in real time.
It is. And it leaves us with a lingering, somewhat melancholic question to explore on your own. As we move into the late 2020s, will global travel become entirely stratified by wealth, where absolute comfort and genuine historical access are reserved exclusively for the luxury tier? Or will ancient, inherently adaptable, chaotic cities like Jaipur always manage to keep one foot firmly planted in their accessible, intensely democratic past, regardless of how high the official entry fees climb?
That is the honest verdict from Phil and H.